Chronological Bible in Year, Day 238. Today we finish the book of Lamentations, and we again see the prophet walking through this idea of misery as the city has fallen. But in the midst of this pain and suffering and despair, in the midst of the people in exile, foreign nations invading, we see a glimmer of hope. And the prophet kind of bounces back and forth between hope and despair and hope and despair. But I love what he says in chapter 3, starting in verse 21. I recall this to mind, therefore I wait. The Lord's acts of mercy indeed do not end, for his compassions do not fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul, therefore I wait for him. The Lord is good to those who await him, to the people who seek him. It is good that he waits silently for the salvation of the Lord. The prophet goes on and says, it's good for those who are young to work hard. Bearing in mind the context, it is good to work hard to grow in and to know God and righteousness. He explains this element of rejecting forever the shame and the grief that will come on us as we turn and follow God. But as I was thinking and praying about this some this morning, I thought, how do I handle despair? When all around me looks bad, when I want to throw a pity party, how do I turn to God in those moments? Or maybe a more fearful question, do I turn to God in those moments? We saw in Jeremiah the prophet calling the people to rejoice during the exile. So how can we turn to God in our grief? How can we praise and worship him in the midst of our sorrow? I love the quote that says that courage isn't living with lack of fear, but rather it's acting in the midst of fear. In the same way, faith isn't living without doubt, but rather faith is how do we live with doubts. And we see at times here the prophet is doubting God's love, provision, and compassion. When we face those same doubts, do we turn from them? Do we hide them? Do we run from them? Or do we wrestle with them and say, God, I am struggling here? Do we go to trusted counsel, or do we go to counsel who has not endured? But I think there's a great value of asking those difficult questions. Let's not shove them and hide them in a corner or under a rug or in a closet, but let's take our hard questions before God and see how the Bible approaches them. We'll be starting the book of Ezekiel tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it, but until then, God bless.